A relationship with the right referral partner could be a game changer for any B2B company. So what if you could reverse engineer these relationships at a moment's notice? Start a podcast, invite potential referral partners to be guests on your show, and grow your referral network faster than ever. Learn more at sweetfishmedia.com.
You're listening to B2B Growth, a daily podcast for B2B leaders. We've interviewed names you've probably heard before, like Gary Vaynerchuk and Simon Sinek, but you've probably never heard from the majority of our guests. That's because the bulk of our interviews aren't with professional speakers and authors. Most of our guests are in the trenches leading sales and marketing teams. They're implementing strategy. They're experimenting with tactics. They're building the fastest growing B2B companies in the world. My name is James Carberry. I'm the founder of Sweetfish Media, a podcast agency for B2B brands, and I'm also one of the co-hosts of this show. When we're not interviewing sales and marketing leaders, you'll hear stories from behind the scenes of our own business. We'll share the ups and downs of our journey as we attempt to take over the world. Just kidding. Well, maybe. Let's get into the show.
Welcome back to the B2B Growth Show. I'm your host for today's episode, Logan Lyles, Director of Partnerships here at Sweetfish Media. I'm joined today by Nick Stagge. He is the VP of Marketing at ExpertVoice. Nick, how you doing today, man?
I'm good. How are you, Logan?
I'm doing fantastic. You and I are both hoping for a white Christmas here in the Rocky Mountains. It's a few days before Christmas as we're recording this, so fingers crossed right now. Great to talk to someone else in the tech scene here in the Rocky Mountain region, man.
Yeah, likewise. It's great to talk to you, and my fingers are crossed. We've got some wet weather right now. It's not snow, but hopefully in the next few days we see the white stuff.
Exactly. Awesome, man. Well, we're going to be talking about driving alignment between sales, marketing, and product today. And excited to have you share with listeners because I think this is a topic that we can't really discuss enough because it's so crucial to our organization's success. Before we do that, Nick, give us a little intro. What's your background in the marketing world and what are you and the team at ExpertVoice up to these days, man?
Really, I feel like I have a bit of imposter syndrome. I've made the vast majority of my career within the sales department for companies like Skullcandy and GoPro, where I was building advocacy marketing programs, but under the sales umbrella. So I was working with our channel partners like Best Buy and REI or Zoomies. And it wasn't until I moved over to ExpertVoice where I officially jumped onto the marketing team. And I came to ExpertVoice because I was a client of theirs for many, many years. And I was kind of the whiny client who loved the potential that ExpertVoice had, but I always felt like, God, if you just did these couple of things, it could be much, much better for me and my needs. And eventually, Tom Stockham, our CEO, just said, well, put your money where your mouth is. Come join us. And so for the past nearly 5 years, I've been at ExpertVoice, and I've seen us transition and grow as a company in ways that are really, really exciting. Essentially, we exist to help consumers buy more confidently. And we do this on the shoulders of trusted recommendations made from real life people who are authentic and credible within their space. So they're not influencers that are defined by their reach. Rather, they're influencers who are defined by their knowledge and their experience and where they've made their careers. So they're people that work in retail. There are people that are industry professionals, consider people that have graduated from culinary school and they're professional chefs, or they're ski and avalanche patrol. They're certified CrossFit instructors. There's people of that caliber. And we've connected, every year we connect more than 1 million of those experts with top brands in their space like the North Face, Purina, New Balance, and we help them build a relationship and we help them increase and improve the recommendations that they're already sharing. So when a consumer walks into a store and they're scratching their head or they Google fry pan and there's 42 million options that come up, there's someone there that's ready to help them make that decision. And that's a real problem for consumers today. So that's the value prop that we offer our clients and that we're attempting to solve day in and day out. It's a really exciting industry to be a part of.
Yeah. And I love your approach there, Nick. I mean, we mention it in the intro to our show here. We've had, big name marketing influencers on our show, and we've been thankful to be able to do those interviews and share that content. But the bulk of our interviews are with, VPs of marketing, directors of demand gen, VPs of sales that are leading sales and marketing teams like yourself, because you are in the trenches executing on the strategy for your company and sharing, what's going on in your space. And so it sounds like you guys are taking that same methodology to the part of the market that you guys serve. And, on that note, especially in the B2B space, it seems like, as I mentioned before, alignment is such a hot topic and seems like it comes up a lot. But I think a lot of people skip this first point that I know you wanted to talk about is, do we really understand the value that alignment really drives, particularly between sales, marketing, and product? Tell us a little bit about that. I would love for you to unpack that before we get into, some tangible how-tos from your perspective.
Sure. Well, I think it's funny because it is a topic that so many people talk about and just as many people scoff at. And it's like, yeah, alignment, I get it. That's cute. It almost feels like it's a little bit of a buzzword, or it's this cliche type statement that's met with a unique combination of a head nod and an eye roll, right? It's like, yeah, I get it. Anyways, let's move on to what we really need to be talking about. And the truth is, it's critical to the success of a company. I mean, it's mission critical. And really, I think it starts with the culture that alignment creates, or the lack of alignment, the culture that a lack of alignment can create. It's polarizing. And if there's turmoil inside your four walls, whether you realize it or not, your customers feel that tension. And that just sets your relationship up with every single client for a whirlwind of struggles and obstacles that otherwise you wouldn't be facing. So make no mistake that your customers can feel that tension that lives between any given department, and really specifically between sales and marketing and product.
Yeah. And, that tension, as you put it, obviously can lead to, increased turnover. And I think there's oftentimes a very tight correlation between employee turnover and churn rate, which is, so important for a lot of the organizations that our listeners are a part of these days, Nick. Let's go from there and talk about, okay, we understand the value of alignment. There's consensus on this being valuable and us understanding the importance of it within our organization. What are some of the things that you see as why there's still misalignment, even when there's consensus around the value that it could bring?
That's a great question. And I think there's a couple of reasons. The first thing that I think is the leading cause of this is each team wants to sell something just slightly differently. So if you put this into real world scenarios, I think the marketing team usually is interested in selling tomorrow. And by that, I mean, they're thinking about, how do we establish ourselves as a thought leader within our industry? How do we up-level our game and our messaging to be ahead of the curve? Marketers tend to be dreamers and think in big, grand schemes, and there's real value there, but we can get ahead of ourselves at times. I know I'm certainly victim of this. And when you get ahead of yourself like that, it can be tough to bring a customer along. It can be tough to bring your internal team along. So I think, first of all, the marketing team usually wants to sell tomorrow. And if you compare that to the product team, they're typically hyper-focused on building for tomorrow, but selling for today. They want to sell the latest product that they've released, the newest features that we have to offer, and they're very focused on, this is the capability of our product, and every client should be using this. Let's focus on that. And it makes sense, right? They've spent months and months, they've spent sprints and countless scrum of scrums going through the process to roll out this new product. And when it's released and the marketing team starts selling tomorrow, there can be frustration and there can be confusion with the customers. And then when you tap onto the sales team typically wants to sell yesterday.
That's where I was going to go. I love that you said that.
They are really interested in, hey, what are the results? Show me the proof that I can go take to a client so it's an easy sell. What are the case studies that I have? How can I create a sense of FOMO? Because by showing them that a client has already done this and they haven't, and so there's a gap. We need that sense of proof in the pudding to go sell something. And, that makes sense. A sales team is commissioned against their ability to close business. They want to eliminate as many hurdles as they can. And if they can point to hey, someone else has done it, I know exactly how to speak to it, then it shortens the sales cycle for them. And that combination of selling tomorrow, today, and yesterday really creates tension. And again, it creates a misalignment for the customer, because the customer comes in off of some sort of demand gen effort that is very pie in the sky. The sales team shows them something that doesn't totally align because this is what we've been doing for years, and maybe that sales pitch hasn't evolved to the point of the marketing's message. If you're lucky enough at that point to close the deal and then they get into the product, it's like, well, wait a second, this does something slightly differently than what I was sold and what initially hooked me. So it's an interesting dynamic that causes a lot of tension and frustration within the department.
I've never heard anyone unpack it quite like that, Nick, in thinking about the way that we quote unquote sell, what time frame each department is looking to sell in. I think that's a great visual to think about. So let's move from there. I know you had a few tangible ways that you feel like organizational leaders can help bring these three departments together. Does it maybe start with understanding this context and speaking more of the same language? And if so, either way, what are some of the other things that you think organizations can do to drive this alignment in these three crucial areas?
Yeah, for me, I think it all starts with placing the consumer, your customer, at the center of every single conversation, decision, and action that your company takes. And if you compare this to the idea of selling tomorrow, today, yesterday, really that mentality only occurs when you're thinking about yourself, not your customer. So when you think about your customer, it really changes the dynamic of what each department wants to sell. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't try to sell some combination or balance of tomorrow, today, and yesterday. When those three things come together and as a unit, you are marketing and selling and building against that, that's where the magic happens. But that only occurs if the first thing you do is put the customer at the center. And I think like Lauren Becker from G2 talked about in your podcast a couple of days ago, you have to really nail down the personas. Who exactly are you talking to? At ExpertVoice, we solve a lot of problems. And that in itself can be a problem because there's different types of people that we can interact with. We can look at someone who specifically is focused on increasing sell-through in their channel partners. That was the persona that I fit into when I was a client. But we also have people that we can work with who are just direct to consumer. And how do they go sell more at higher margin, void of any sort of channel relationships? And so the theme is the same. It's all about helping consumers buy more confidently and selling more product for the brand. But the pain, the responsibility of those personas and the pains that they're facing are very different and unique from one another. So when you start to identify each persona's key responsibility and then list out their pain, they have an enormous amount of hurdles that are in front of them. And if as a team, as a collective unit, your sales, marketing, and product teams can say, these are the pains that we currently solve for and can solve for. How do we build a narrative around that? Then you start to march forward in unison, and your alignment already begins to shift. Mm-hmm. That really only happens when all three teams or leaders within the teams or key stakeholders within the teams have the ability and the willingness to listen with empathy. Mm-hmm. And I think that's of the utmost importance in creating alignment is the word empathy. Oftentimes, I think you sit in a room with your cross-functional counterparts and you listen only to identify gaps in their thinking or their logic or areas for you to insert your opinion. And when you can break that habit and you can start to listen with empathy to truly understand the point of view of your counterpart, that's when alignment begins. And I know it's a little cheesy, but I coach my team on an acronym for listening with empathy that is called LEADER. So first and some of these are a bit repetitive, but I drive this point home over and over because I think it's such an important skill set that every person on each of these departments need to have. And the L is just listen. Like, just close your mouth. Just listen. E is with empathy. Like, try to understand their point of view. And then ask probing and detailed questions so you can have a better understanding of why they've gotten to the point they've gotten to, what led them down this road. And once you do that, then you can really start to discuss, which is the D in leader. You can discuss potential action items, potential solutions to the problems that you're having. And then the E is experiment. Like, okay, we've discussed these things. Let's go try a bunch of things. Let's see what works. Let's see what sticks, and let's be willing to come back and reevaluate the decision we've landed on as a unit. Right. Because it may work, it may not. But I think if you can listen with empathy and you can follow that basic framework, you can start to grow alignment, and everything from there really starts to grow and improve within your building.
Mm-hmm. And what's the R in leader in that acronym, Nick?
It's reevaluate. So Perfect. After you've experimented, come back and reevaluate and start that conversation over. And really, when I'm diagramming out leader with my team, it's not actually spelled out. It's in a cycle, because the moment you hit the reevaluate, you're right back into the top of that acronym.
Yeah. I love that visual. I mean, you touched on it there. Some people could see it as kind of, high level or basic, or maybe a little too cheesy or whatever, but it comes back to, what Covey talks about in seek first to understand, then to be understood. And I see how that really can be, tactically played out in the way that you diagram this for your team. And it's very important to bring it full circle in a consistent feedback loop. I love that. I love the way that you're shedding some light on, hey, let's take a step back and think about how sales, marketing, and product think about sales within our organization in a different light, and how that is kind of an underlying issue with alignment. I have not heard someone really unpack it in that way. Nick, this has been a great conversation, man. And I love the tangible takeaways that you've provided with listeners. If anybody listening to this would like to stay connected with you, follow up, ask any questions, or learn more about ExpertVoice, what's the best way for them to go about doing that, man?
Yeah. Hit us up on LinkedIn or visit our website, expertvoice.com.
Perfect. Awesome, man. Well, Nick, this has been a pleasure to have you on the show, man. I really appreciate you taking some time out of your schedule to be here with us, man.
Thanks for having me so much, Logan. I'll keep my fingers crossed for a white Christmas for both you and I.
Awesome, man. Hopefully we have enjoyed that by the time this episode is live. Really appreciate your time, man.
Thanks, Logan. Take care.
Digital marketing agencies have a tough job. You have to stay on top of the latest marketing strategies for your clients and your agency. What if there was a way you could address both at the same time? Imagine your agency putting out content with greater quality and quantity. Envision bringing your clients a turnkey solution for one of B2B marketing's fastest growing media strategies, podcasting. You know, all those clients asking for your help with their account-based marketing efforts? Picture being the first to bring them the idea of content-based networking, showing them the proven strategy for breaking into their most coveted accounts. Here's the concept. Sweetfish Media is looking to work with a limited number of innovative agencies interested in a new partnership model. We produce a podcast for your agency. You introduce the power of podcasting and Sweetfish services to your clients. Everybody wins. Learn more at sweetfishpartners.com.